He was standing in a dark room. His hand was shaking so badly the knife was tapping against his knee. In front of him, a basin of water sat on a stone altar. And inside that water, her face. Amanda's face. His wife. Staring back at him like she was waiting. Call her name 3 times, the Grandmaster said behind him. Then use the knife. Damian's throat had closed up. His whole body was screaming at him to run. To drop the knife. To refuse. But he had already tried refusing. And they had given him 7 days to change his mind. Today was the 7th day. Write down pointing backhand index stay right here, because what led Damian to this moment is a story you will not forget. And before we go back to the beginning, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, drop a comment, and share this with someone. Now, let us go back. All the way back to where this started. If you drove through that town on any given morning, you would hear Damian before you saw him. The clang of metal. The hiss of something releasing pressure. A voice humming a song to nobody in particular. He ran a small mechanic workshop by the side of the road, not because it was his dream, but because it was his reality, and Damian was the kind of man who worked with what he had. His hands were always dark with grease. His clothes were never fully clean. And at the end of most days, when other men went home, Damian would roll out a mat in the corner of that same workshop, lie down among the tools and engine parts, and sleep. That was his life. Then Amanda walked into it. Nobody quite understood what she saw in him at first. Amanda was the kind of woman that made people turn around twice on the street. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. There was something about the way she moved, the way she listened when you talked, the way her eyes had warmth in them even for strangers. She had been to London. She had studied there. Her father, Chief Adeyemi, was one of the most respected men in the region. And yet, she would show up at Damian's workshop in the evenings with food wrapped carefully in foil, still warm from her kitchen. She would sit on a wooden bench beside him while he ate, and they would talk. Nothing grand. Just talk, the kind that makes hours disappear without warning. One evening she arrived and found him spreading his mat on the floor. She stopped. Damian. HM? Is this where you sleep? He didn't answer right away. Just looked at her with an expression caught between pride and embarrassment. It's not so bad, he said. I know where everything is. Amanda didn't argue with him. She didn't pity him. She just nodded quietly. 2 weeks later, she handed him a key. I rented an apartment, she said simply. For you. It's already furnished. Damian stared at the key like he wasn't sure it was real. Amanda, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything, she said, and she smiled at him. I already did it. That was the kind of woman she was. Of course, when Amanda brought Damian home to meet her family, her mother's reaction was something else entirely. The woman looked Damian up and down from the moment he walked through the door. She took in his shoes, his shirt, the way he held himself. And then, without even pretending to be subtle, she turned to Amanda and said, This is the person you brought to my house. Not a question. A verdict. She didn't even look at Damian when she said the rest. I sent you to London with good money. You studied there. You met educated, well-connected people. You had opportunities your father and I never had, and you come back here to give yourself to a mechanic? A man who doesn't even own the place he sleeps in. She laughed. It was a short, cold laugh that was somehow more cutting than shouting. Damian stood there and took it. Every word. Every glance. Every silence that followed. He took it because Amanda was standing beside him, and she was worth every humiliation her mother could throw. Amanda's father was a different man. He sat quietly through his wife's performance. When she was done, he looked at Damian for a long time. Not with judgment, with the kind of look that tries to see what is actually there, underneath the clothes and the circumstances. Then he asked, very calmly, Young man, do you truly love my daughter? Sir, Damian said, with everything I am. The old man turned to his daughter. And you? Yes, Papa, Amanda said, without blinking. I do. Chief Adeyemi nodded. Just once. Then I have no objection, he said. His wife made a sound of disbelief. The old man ignored her. A few weeks later, he called Amanda privately and gave her 5 million naira, cash, with a message for Damian. Tell him to start something. Tell him to build. Damian took that money like a man who had been thirsty for a very long time and had just been handed water. He started a business. He was careful, and he was smart, and he worked at it with the same stubbornness he had always used to survive. It wasn't quick. There were slow months that tested him. But it grew. And through all of it, Amanda was right there. Through the months when her mother still found ways to make Damian feel small at family gatherings. Through the days when doubt crept in and the numbers didn't add up. Through all of it, she stayed. They got married on a Saturday that felt like a gift. And for 3 years, life was good. Not perfect, good. Real. The kind of good where you come home and the person you love is there, and that's enough. More than enough. Damian had a proper house now. His business was doing well. He wore nicer clothes and drove a decent car. He wasn't the richest man in the city, but he was building something. You could feel the momentum of it. He had Amanda. He had peace. He should have known. Sometimes peace is just the quiet before something comes and tears everything open. It was the evening after their 3rd anniversary celebration. They had spent the day together, just the two of them. No guests, no loud music, no performances for other people. Just a quiet dinner and old memories and laughter that felt easy. Damian was still in a good mood when Femi arrived. Femi was one of those people who walked into a room and instantly made it feel like something interesting was about to happen. He was charming, well-dressed, quick with a smile. He and Damian had been friends for years, the kind of friend you call first when something goes wrong. He sat down, accepted a drink, looked around the living room, and said, "Damian, I have been watching you rise, and I am proud of you. But you know what I see? I see a man with a ceiling above his head that he doesn't even know is there." Damian raised an eyebrow. "A ceiling?" "Listen to me. There is a fellowship I belong to. A brotherhood. These are not small men, Damian. Governors know these men. Ministers. People you see on television and wonder how they got to where they are. These men protect each other. They support each other financially. Contracts, connections, protection, everything. You want to go from doing well to being untouchable? This is how." "Is it a church?" Damian asked. Femi paused just a half second. "It's something like a church. But it's more practical. These are serious men of action, not just prayer. And they take care of their own, I am telling you. And there's nothing strange about it." "Nothing evil," Femi said, and his eyes were steady, his voice calm. "I swear to you. Would I bring something dangerous to my brother?" Damian looked at him. Femi smiled, that easy, open smile. "Trust me," he said. Damian trusted him. God help him, he trusted him. Femi brought him there on a Thursday night. Even from outside, something felt wrong. Not in a way Damian could name, just a feeling. Like the air around the building was slightly different from the air everywhere else. Inside, there were red fabrics hanging from the ceiling. Symbols on the walls that Damian didn't recognize. Men in long robes moving in a silence that had weight to it. The smell of incense, thick and old. This was not a church. Damian leaned to Femi and kept his voice low. "This does not look like any fellowship I have ever seen." "I know," Femi murmured back. "Just wait. You'll understand." The initiation that night was long and strange. They made him kneel. They made him swear an oath, a heavy, detailed oath that bound him to the brotherhood above everything else. Above family. Above self. He heard the words coming out of his own mouth and something in him felt uneasy, but Femi was right there beside him and he kept telling himself, "Femi is here. Femi would never bring me somewhere that would harm me." They placed a gold ring on his finger. "Never remove this," the man in the highest position told him. "It carries protection for you." They gave him a red garment. "This is yours now. Wear it as a symbol of what you have become." Damian walked out of there that night with a ring on his finger, red cloth in his hands, and a strange hollowness somewhere in his chest that he told himself was just nerves. He would be fine. He was sure he would be fine. 3 weeks later, his phone started ringing and did not stop. Contracts arrived one after another. His business, which had been growing steadily, suddenly exploded. The state governor's office. A federal ministry. Companies he had only dreamed of working with. Money poured in with a speed that was almost frightening. Within months, Damian had crossed into a world of wealth he hadn't imagined for himself. He told himself it was the hard work paying off. He told himself it was the connections through the brotherhood. He put the unease from that night in the temple somewhere quiet in the back of his mind and focused on the blessing. Then Femi came again. "There is a special gathering this weekend," he said, in that same smooth tone. "A purification ceremony. Very important, you should not miss it." "What do I need to prepare?" Damian asked. "For 3 days before the ceremony, do not eat anything cooked by a woman. Nothing prepared over fire. And do not sleep with Amanda, not in those 3 days." Damian frowned. "Femi, that sounds..." "Spiritual preparation," Femi said firmly. "That's all it is. Just do it." And Damian did it. He didn't tell Amanda why. When she noticed he wasn't eating her food and wasn't touching her, she asked him. He told her it was a spiritual fast, a prayer thing. She accepted it quietly, the way she accepted most things. On the day of the ceremony, Damian dressed in his red garment and went to the temple. The Grand Master stood at the front of the room and the mood in that temple was nothing like the night of Damian's initiation. The air felt like it was pressing down. The Grand Master spoke slowly, his voice deep and certain. "Brothers, tonight marks a crossing. From mortal to immortal. From ordinary to king. And a crossing of this kind requires payment. Blood must move through the earth before power can move through a man. He paused. And then he looked directly at Damian. Brother Damian, the Brotherhood has chosen you for this honor. The sacrifice required of you. A silence so thick you could hold it. Is your wife? The room did not react. The brothers sat still, their faces empty of surprise. They already knew. Damian heard the words. And then he heard them again, because the first time they didn't make sense. What? Your wife. Amanda. Something left Damian's body in that moment. He couldn't have described what it was, just that something vital and warm simply departed. No, he said. His voice was strangely calm. No, you don't understand. Take my money. Take everything in my accounts, every naira, take it. Take years off my life, I will sign it over right now. Take my business, take my house, take anything. But not Amanda. Please. Not her. The Grand Master looked at him without any expression. The Brotherhood does not substitute, he said. You have 7 days to complete the sacrifice. If she is still alive when the 7th day ends, he paused, you will not be. Damian drove home that night and sat in his car in his own driveway for 45 minutes. He could hear the TV inside. He could see the light in the living room through the window. Amanda was in there, probably waiting for him, probably having saved him food even though he had told her he was fasting. He could not go inside. He sat in that car and shook. When he finally walked in, Amanda looked up from the sofa and smiled. That smile. That smile that had been walking into his workshop with warm food for years. That smile that had handed him an apartment key without making him beg. That smile that had stood beside him while her own mother tried to tear him apart. You're late, she said softly. I kept your food warm. He sat down across from her and looked at her for a long time. Amanda, he said. HM? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Looked away. Nothing, he said. I'm just tired. That night, he could not sleep. He sat up in the darkness, and the tears came without permission, just rolled quietly down his face while Amanda slept beside him, breathing peacefully, not knowing. By the third night, she woke up to find him sitting on the floor at the foot of the bed, his head in his hands. She got up immediately and knelt in front of him. Damian, look at me. What is happening? He looked at her. His eyes were wrecked. Something bad is coming, he whispered. They want to take someone I love. The person I love most in this world. Her voice dropped. Who? Who wants to take who? Tell me. He pressed his lips together. He shook his head. I can't. Damian. I can't, Amanda. Just, let me hold you. She let him. And he held her like a man holding something he knows he is about to lose. The next morning he went to find Femi. He found him at home, calm, dressed well, eating breakfast as if the world was completely fine. You lied to me. Damian's voice was quiet, but the look on his face was not quiet at all. You stood in my house, you looked at me, and you said there was nothing evil. You called it a fellowship. You said it was nothing. And now they want my wife, Femi. My wife. Femi set down his fork. Damian. Don't. His hands were balled into fists at his sides. Don't give me a smooth answer right now. Give me a human answer. How could you do this to me? Femi was quiet for a moment. Then he said, and his voice had something different in it now, something almost tired. Do you think the men you admire got where they are with prayer alone? Every powerful man you know, every untouchable person in this country, all of them. They paid something. The politicians. The businessmen. The men you see on the news walking into buildings that ordinary people will never enter. All of them. This is how the world works, Damian. And you? Damian asked. What did you pay? Femi looked out of the window. I was told I can never be with a woman, he said quietly. Not for pleasure. Not for love. Never again. Instead. He stopped. They gave me men. A silence settled between them. Damian stared at his friend, this man he had trusted more than almost anyone, and felt something he had never felt for Femi before. Pity. And revulsion. And grief for both of them. He left. The 7th day arrived the way terrible things always do, quietly, ordinarily, without any announcement. The sun came up. Birds made noise outside. Somewhere down the street, someone was frying something and the smell drifted through the window. Damian sat at the kitchen table and stared at his hands. He had no more options. He had turned this over 10,000 times in 7 days. He had looked for a way out from every angle. He had gone back to the Grand Master once more and begged on his knees. Nothing. 7 days, the Grand Master had said. The decision was made before you were brought to us. You simply did not know it yet. So at midnight, Damian dressed. He drove to the temple. He walked inside alone. They were waiting for him. The Grand Master handed him the knife. It was beautiful. The blade caught the light in a way that shouldn't have been calming but somehow was. The basin was placed before him. Still water. Dark around the edges. Call her name, the Grandmaster said. 3 times. Damian's fingers closed around the handle of the knife. His mouth opened. The first time her name left his lips, his voice broke on it. The second time, the water in the basin began to move. The third time, her face appeared. Looking up at him from the water. Her eyes. That face. That smile that used to walk into his workshop with warm food. The knife, the Grandmaster said. Damian was crying openly now. His whole body was heaving with it. The knife trembled in his hand. Do it, the Grandmaster said. And Damian, God help him, God forgive him, brought the knife down. He drove home. He walked through the front door. He called her name. Silence. He checked the bedroom. The kitchen. The bathroom. He found her in the bedroom, on the bed, looking like she was sleeping. Peaceful. Exactly as she had looked beside him every night for 3 years. But she was not sleeping. Damian sat on the floor beside the bed. He put his head against the mattress. And he stayed there until the morning came, not moving, not speaking, just making a sound that didn't sound like crying and didn't sound like anything else either. The Brotherhood came. They came with their condolences and their handshakes and their envelopes and their bank transfers, as if money was a language that could translate what had happened into something acceptable. One brother, 150 million naira. Another, 200 million. Another, 250 million. Femi, his dear sweet friend, 350 million. The Grandmaster himself, 500 million. And from the Brotherhood central account, 5 billion naira, transferred quietly to Damian's name. Damian watched it all happen from somewhere slightly outside of himself. He was a billionaire now. He sat in his mansion in the evenings surrounded by wealth that most men would sell their souls for, and he thought about that and almost laughed. He sat in the same chair every night. And every night the house was so quiet. The door opened on its own the first time on a Wednesday night. He was in bed, almost asleep, when he heard the front door click open downstairs. He lay still and listened. No footsteps. No sound. After a few minutes, he went down. The door was open. He closed it. Checked the locks. Went back upstairs. At 3 in the morning, he opened his eyes. She was there. Amanda was sitting at the edge of the bed, the exact spot where she used to sit when she couldn't sleep. Her back was to him. She was completely still. The air in the room was ice. Amanda! She was gone. He was alone. He sat up and pressed himself against the headboard and did not sleep again that night. The kitchen was worse. He came down one morning and every pot, every plate, every glass was floating. Suspended in the air like they were waiting. The spoons were lined up horizontally, turning slowly. He backed out of the kitchen and closed the door. He called Femi with shaking hands. You are missing her, Femi said. Grief affects the mind. Femi, the pots are floating in my kitchen. A pause. I'm sure there's an... She sits at the edge of my bed at night. Another pause. Longer this time. Go and see the Grandmaster, Femi said. The Grandmaster listened. He pointed to the ring. Use it when she appears. Stretch out your hand, speak her name, command her to leave. The ring will bind her. Damian went home and waited. She came that same night. Sitting at the edge of the bed. Not moving. The cold spreading out from her like fog. He raised his hand. He said the words the Grandmaster had taught him. Amanda, I bind you. I command you to leave this place and not return. She turned her head slowly and looked at him. She did not move. If anything, she became more present. More solid. The walls shook slightly. Something fell off the dresser. The cold became brutal. Damian ran. He ran out of his own house in his pajamas, got in his car, and drove to Femi's house. He banged on the door at 2 in the morning. Femi opened it, sleepy and confused. She's here, Damian said. Femi looked past him. And his face changed. Because she was there too. In Femi's garden. Standing between the shrubs, perfectly still, looking at the house. Femi pulled Damian inside and slammed the door. That was when he knew, this was no longer something he could explain away. Back at the Grandmaster's temple, the old man sat with his hands folded and said, without much emotion, marry again. The presence of a living woman will quiet a dead one. Damian looked at him. That is your solution. It is the solution, the Grandmaster said firmly. Mara was a good woman. She was young, kind, had no idea what she was walking into. She had been told that Damian was a wealthy widower, which was technically true. She moved in. For 2 nights, things were quiet. Damian allowed himself one small breath of hope. On the 3rd night, Mara screamed. He ran to the bedroom and found her backed against the wall, pointing at the foot of the bed. There's someone there, she whispered. A woman. She's standing right there. Damian could see nothing. But the cold, he could feel the cold. One morning, Mara came to him trembling. Last night, she said, I woke up and there was a body between us. I could feel the weight of it. Cold, so cold. I couldn't move. I just lay there until it went away. She grabbed his arm. Damian. Who is she? Who is this woman in our house? There is no woman, he said. Don't lie to me. There is no women. She looked at him for a long time. Something in her eyes shifted, from fear to something harder. A week later, she told him she had invited a pastor to come and pray in the house. He came home to find a man in a white collar sitting in his living room with a Bible on his knee. Something moved in Damian, not grief this time. Something sharper. Something that looked almost like panic. Get out, he said. The pastor blinked. Get out of my house. Now. He looked at Mara. Don't you ever, I mean this, Mara, do not ever bring anything like this into my house again. The pastor left. Mara stared at her husband. And the house continued its haunting. The Grand Master gave him water. Special water, blessed in the way the Brotherhood blessed things. He sprayed it in every room, every corner, every doorway. Nothing changed. Damian tried to sell the house. He listed it. Agents came and looked around. Potential buyers arrived, walked through the rooms, and left quickly, always without looking back, always with some vague reason they couldn't quite explain. The best offer he received for a house worth over 500 million naira was 23 million. He raised his voice at the agent. The agent shrugged uncomfortably and said, people are saying things about this house. That there's something wrong with it. I can't control what people say. Damian dismissed him. He went to Femi and this time, he didn't keep his voice down. This is your fault, he said. You brought me there. You told me there was nothing evil. You put me in that room and watched them swear me in and you said nothing. This is all on you. Femi's wife was in the next room. Damian didn't care. Do you know what they made me do? He said, loudly now. Do you know what kind of brotherhood your husband belongs to? Ask him. Ask him what they asked me to sacrifice. Ask him what he himself has given up. Femi's face went white. Lower your voice. Ask him. The door to the next room opened slightly. Femi grabbed Damian's arm and pulled him outside. Are you mad? Femi hissed. Yes, Damian said. Yes. I think I am. Wouldn't you be? Then came the visit he had been dreading most. Amanda's mother arrived first. The same woman who had laughed at him in her living room years ago, who had called him a mechanic as though the word was an insult, who had made him feel invisible at every family gathering he had ever attended. She arrived at his door, and she looked different. Smaller. The sharpness had gone from her face and left something frightened in its place. She came to me, the woman said, standing in his doorway, not even stepping inside. Amanda. In a dream. She was standing right in front of me, and she looked at me and she said, the woman's voice cracked, she said she is asking for revenge. Damian looked at his mother-in-law. It was a dream, he said. Damian. A dream. That's all it was. He closed the door. That same week, Chief Adeyemi came. Amanda's father walked into the living room and sat down without being asked. He looked around the room, at the expensive furniture, the high ceilings, the art on the walls. At everything Damian had used Amanda's death to buy. Then he looked at Damian. And he said, quietly, with no anger in his voice whatsoever. I trusted you with her. 4 words. Damian could not speak. The old man stood up, adjusted his agbada, and walked out. He did not slam the door. He just left. And somehow that was the worst thing. The Brotherhood had grown distant. Phone calls went unanswered. The Grand Master's temple sent back a message through a junior member, the Grand Master is not available. Femi was unreachable. Brothers who had pressed envelopes of cash into his hands at Amanda's burial now didn't know his name. Then one evening, a message arrived. From the Grand Master. Stop coming to the temple. You are disturbing things. I will come to you. Tonight. Damian read the message and sat very still. Something was wrong with that message. The tone of it. The finality. He sat in his living room and waited. At midnight, the front door opened. He hadn't heard a car. He hadn't heard footsteps on the stairs. The door simply opened, and the Grand Master walked in, robes, staff, the same empty expression he always wore. He stood in the center of the living room. You have become a problem, the Grand Master said simply, like he was discussing a contract that had gone sour. The Brotherhood cannot carry problems. I just want peace, Damian said. That's all I want. I gave you what you asked. I want peace. And your wife does not want to give it to you, the Grand Master said. That is not our fault. Then help me. We are done helping you. The Grand Master raised his staff. And in that room, that beautiful, expensive room in that house that no one would buy, something happened to Damian. It is the kind of thing that is hard to describe to someone who has never seen it. He made a sound, short, surprised, and then he was still. Just still. The Brotherhood performed their ritual. They moved through the house quietly and efficiently, the way men perform a task they have done before. Then they left. The door closed behind them. The house was quiet. Truly quiet. For the first time in a very long time. The town talked. Damian, the billionaire mechanic, dead overnight. No cause. No illness. Just gone. Mara packed her things and disappeared before the week was over. She never spoke publicly about what had happened inside those walls. Amanda's mother, who had once laughed at a young man with grease under his fingernails, now lit candles at night and whispered prayers she had not said since childhood. And Chief Adeyemi, that wise, quiet old man who had looked a mechanic in the eye and decided love was enough, sat on his veranda one evening at sunset and stared at the road. He was thinking about a Thursday afternoon, years ago, when a young man had sat across from him and said, "Sir, with everything I am." He had believed him. He still believed that the love had been real. He just wished, more than anything he had wished in his long life, that love alone had been enough to save his daughter from the man who carried it. Damian started with nothing but a workshop and a woman who believed in him. He ended with billions in an account and a name nobody wanted to say out loud anymore. The ring is still somewhere. The red garment is still somewhere. And somewhere, if you believe in such things, Amanda is still waiting. If this story got under your skin, please like this video right now. Subscribe so you never miss the next one. Drop a comment, tell us, at what point did you know Damian was finished? And share this with someone today, because sometimes a story is the most important thing a person can hear. Some doors, once you walk through them, only open one way.